Did you guys get the video I put up yesterday?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, the reason I did it like that, when it's a bigger chunk of information or more complex, I'll do it that way. Did you guys understand all that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The graphics,
But
go ahead.
I tried the first one,
Graphic style.
the appearance style. I make my own design, but when I fit it on a text, it seems to be very bold, like overlapping
Yeah.
text.
You got to kind of think about it when you're making it. That's a weird. That tool to me is a little bit weird. Not in the idea of what it does, but in the idea of how you create it. The way you have to go through the appearances panel and all that stuff. It's weird to me, and I kind of get it because it has to sort of separate. It's sort of like an action in Photoshop. It has to sort of separate those ideas, I think.
I see.
And then it has, and then when I was looking at them, and they have a, hang on, let me find it here. I want to switch my screen in a second. Let me launch this. What was I going to say? That weird way where you kind of use the appearances palette is sort of a layers palette and all that kind of thing. And it'll accept certain things, but like, if you don't do it that way and you drag it into graphic styles, it just doesn't take. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And I did the same thing. If you notice in the tutorial I did, mine came out, it was a little big for what I was using.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there's different ways to get around, you think about it when you're making it, because it's applying it. And you know what, I hadn't thought of this, but maybe I didn't apply scale images and effects that we do in the scaling thing, where you double click it, it comes up and you say scale. I'm not sure if that makes a difference with the layers or with the graphic styles. I think it might, because it seems to not think about the scale of it. It seems to apply it no matter, if the letters are close together and all that kind of stuff. Or you just have to think about that when you're making it, that it's, you're going to be using it on smaller objects and all that. And I think there's a, hang on, because I don't use it that much, but I'm starting to get interested in it a little bit.
The gradient style looks good in that.
Yeah, the gradient doesn't necessarily have the same, well, I guess it could. Hang on a sec. I want to see if, because they have a, yeah, here it is. Okay, so they have, let me switch my screen. You guys can see my screen, right? Yes? You guys see it? Yeah?
Yep.
Okay, so if you go here, window, and there's a lot of things under here. They have extra brush libraries, like a lot of brush libraries, graphics, and then there's a graphic style library. So if you came in here, let's just look at buttons. And you can apply all these different ideas onto here. Make sense?
Yep.
I mean, it comes in handy, like what we're going to start doing, what I want to start doing. Okay, so we went through, okay, so graphic styles everybody's okay with, right?
Yeah.
And I would go down that rabbit hole a little bit because I do think it's a valuable tool. It's another valuable tool that I didn't really use when I was, active in my design career, right? Where when I was doing multiple things that have literally a graphic style that are going to, spread across an idea or package design or whatever it was, you can just pop that on there real quick and not keep recreating it over and over again. It's a handy tool, okay? And again, there's a whole library of them in here, and some of them are just sort of, like the thing I do with things like that is, if it fills the need, fine. But I mean, I don't use things because they happen to be there. I use it because, okay, this solves my problem and it looks good. But if it doesn't look the way I want it to look, then I'm gonna create my own. And usually I create my own, okay? Any other things on graphic styles? Okay. What was the other thing? We did, okay, I put the transform tool in there, and I know we talked a little bit about it, but I wanted it to be on there like as a note for you guys on how to use that, because that's a weird tool the way it works. The one where I put it in perspective in the tutorial. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So everybody tried that? Because that's a really handy tool too, but you got to do that weird start to move it, and then Command Shift Option, or whatever it is, Command Option Shift, you know, and then it'll pull it into perspective. Or you can twist it a little bit like with just the Command key, like I did in the beginning of it, okay? So I just want to make sure that that was on there so you guys had a, you know, a reference point for how that all worked. Hang on, I'll take a screen grab again in a minute. Any questions on that? And what else did I cover in there? I forgot. We did graphic styles, transform, crap. Let me see if I can remember now. Point being, does anybody have questions about anything that was in that video? Or is everybody okay with it? Okay? It's a handful of new tools, but what I really want to do, the reason I didn't give you guys a new assignment yet or whatever is because I want to start one now. Let me go to, let me get a screen grab real quick. I've got to switch my Zoom thing. Okay, let me do this one more time. Now I think I have everybody here. Okay. Okay, what I want to start doing is I want to do an infographic project. Okay, does everybody know what that is?
No.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Infographic. Infographic project. Okay, so does everybody know what an infographic is?
No, not really.
Okay.
Not really.
Infographic is basically a it's a graphic that you use to explain something for the most part, or it could be. I'll show you some examples now. Hang on.
I have a great book on infographics.
Yeah?
Actually,
Of course you do.
it's called Listomania.
What's it called?
Listomania.
Oh, that sounds cool. And it's just
And
all
it's just-
infographics?
Yeah, it's just a bunch of lists and stuff, and it's all in like just different graphic styles.
The information in the graphic style, like population census, graphically something.
Okay, I want to keep it really broad. So, like, if you look at these, I mean, they can be anything from a map to, you know, these kind of timeline things, which I find less interesting. Another map idea. I like this kind of stuff. What I'm looking for is that we take, I love infographics, okay? I just think they're cool. And I also think that they serve a really interesting purpose because I look at them all the time. I think that I just like the way they look partly, but I also love the idea that you're taking very complex information and making it graphically interesting and so much easier to absorb the information, okay? I just looked at one recently because I never quite understood. I like all that space program stuff, and I didn't really understand how the whole moon thing happened. Like, how they end up with this second ship and how did all that work? And somebody did this really cool infographic of it where you just went in 5 minutes, you went, oh, okay, I get it. And it was interesting to look at. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like this type of thing. You know, I love this kind of stuff where you come up with solutions for a complex thing and it's fun and it's interesting and it makes sense, okay? Here's another one, okay? Or this is a map somebody did at Disneyland, okay? Disneyland used to do, and they probably still do, they used to do, this guy isn't from Disneyland, but somebody who did this, but they used to do these really cool maps of the park that were super fun looking, you know, and people collect them, it's a cool thing. Or, I think I pulled a couple of here. So this one, like these are old school things, but I mean, it's the same idea, okay? These were done by hand. And what's interesting is I didn't realize this is done by a guy who used to work for me at Disney. These maps he would make just to tell his friends, in this case, it was how to get to Felipe's, which is right here. And he would just make these maps for him and send them to him, which I think is kind of interesting. Like they were just for fun, okay? But that's just sort of an old school take on it. You could do that type of thing. That's that one again. Well, some of these I pulled, I didn't realize it didn't pull the image. Great. This one I think is cool. I love this too, that they kind of use that gradient idea, and then like the surface reflections on his skin are just, you know, this shape, and then he just pulled a gradient from color to nothing over it and gave it that kind of, it's just a nice, simple, clean thing, okay? I've had people do, and by the way, it's an opportunity if you want to do something that interests you. And I also think, like Braden, it makes sense for me, for him, but if it ties into something else you're doing, if it ties into Stephen's class, if it ties into something like that, I'm super flexible about it, okay? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yep.
Info, you know, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying, yeah.
And like Braden's doing, you're doing UI UX right now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, all this stuff makes sense to that world to me. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Yeah. And you're, from what I can tell with you, I mean, you probably like corporate design quite a bit, right?
Yeah, for the most part.
Okay. I think we've talked about this before, but I mean, that's where the money is.
Yeah, of course.
But with the good thing about people like you, I think I told you about my intern, people like you guys like that stuff. It's different when people go, oh, go into corporate design because it's where the money is, but they don't really like it. And they always go back and tell me, well, I don't want to do corporate annual reports and all that. I'm like, do you even know what, you know, the broad scope of this world now? It's not just a bunch of corporate reports. And by the way, when they do corporate reports, they do really interesting things with them now, the people who are doing really cool stuff. And they poo-poo all this stuff because they don't know enough about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's up to you as a designer when somebody gives you something like that. I think it's a super interesting project, so I don't really understand. I think almost any design project is interesting. But it's up to you to make that thing where it's not boring. And they did used to be boring. And I think a lot of people, and probably some of them still are, but I think a lot of people now are doing things like this where they're using this type of styling or whatever, and they're making it interesting. Another place to go, I just briefly yesterday went to I went to Dribble. I like Dribble a lot because it has a lot of vector stuff. A lot of really good vector stuff, actually. So let's see. And I just went through here and just started looking at, that's where I got this whale one from. This kind of stuff. Okay. Now, I don't care really all that much about what the subject matter is. Does that make sense? Yes?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can do it. Now, I've had people also where they sort of take it and they go, well, I'm going to do video game stuff or whatever. And it's like, I encourage you guys, I want you to do stuff that interests you, and that's fine. But I also encourage you to sort of get out of your own ecosystem once in a while. Like, don't just go, I like to draw game characters, so I'm just going to draw game characters. It's like, you got to start thinking about, like, if you guys are further along, or even if you're not further along, but you know, you're newer. And I probably said this before, but I always think about portfolio pieces. And if somebody gives me, if I have teachers that are giving me mechanics and they're giving me a creative choice, I'm going to try and do a portfolio piece. If you get 2 or 3 of those a term, that's pretty good. Okay. Even if you're newer, you should create, I think you should create a digital portfolio. Usually I do it in InDesign, make it interactive and stuff like that. And then you're just constantly swapping out pieces as you get better and better. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Always think about your portfolio. Okay, it matters. Like when I was at Fullerton, I was always thinking about my portfolio, and I didn't know anything. But when I went over to Art Center, I had a strong portfolio. Okay. Then when I got out of Art Center, I had a strong portfolio to go work. Okay. And the quicker you start thinking about it, and I'm not saying that whatever you're doing right now, if you're newer, is going to be your portfolio. It's not, but it gets you in the mindset of constantly looking at your work all of it, okay? Because you got it laid out. Because what happens to people is they go, then they need a portfolio, okay? And then they go, oh, I got to put a portfolio together. Then they start pulling all their work out and they go, I got nothing but infographics. That's all I got. Or I got nothing but character design. That's all I got. And it's like, that's not going to get you a job. You got to show some range in, and also be able to shift gears, okay? You know, if whatever you're doing, it's, I mean, I've gone all over the map on things, and somebody give me I usually did product or theme park or whatever, that kind of illustration, all that kind of stuff, and then jump over and do package design. I thought it was super interesting to tackle different projects, okay? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I have a quick question with like the topic theme thing. I know that you don't really care, but is there anything that you like just know rabbit holes into something that gets too complex for like graphic design?
Not really. I think no. I think you can pick a pretty, I've had students in this project, and it's a project I really like. I like editorial. I just like stuff. I like design, okay? And infographics to me is a very design-centric project, okay? I've had people do things like somebody was into, you know, was really into environmental things and all that kind of stuff. And she did like a whole thing on the water wars that are going out in Central California right now, where everybody's fighting over water and all that stuff. She did a really interesting, I should find them and actually link them, or I'll put them in a folder. Because some of the students done really nice work on this and on everything. But I've had one do the history of different things. I think the history of different things can be interesting if you make it interesting. I think if you just do the timeline, I mean, that can work. And if I was doing a layout for a magazine, and I've, you know, you've seen this before, where they're having a big article on, let's say, the history of the water stuff in Central California. And then down at the bottom of the page, along the bottom, they've got like an infographic that comes up and goes, 1930, this happened with the aqueduct, and they have these interesting graphics. Now, that would work, you know, because it's working in conjunction with an article, okay? But I don't know that the timeline thing works all the time, because it can get a little easy where you're just going, okay, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, and this happened. I think it's more interesting when you get a complex, and you guys are still seeing my screen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you get a more complex solution, like some of these other ones we were just talking about, you know, let me put this. Let me see if I can move this. Like these kind of things where they get a little more complicated, or this one, oops, this one. You know, I don't know. There's something about that marriage of information and design and all that stuff. I just love that stuff. Okay, and how you do it. I mean, there's a big factor in this, and how clever and clear you are in doing it, and how you think about it. Okay, like those ones happen to be one image, one interesting image that's conveying a lot of information, or, you know, some of them are multiple images, or like, I love those old maps, like the old, and now that, you know, like that one I just showed you that Dwight did. I mean, that's all done by hand, but I love that kind of stuff. Or the one I just showed you at Disneyland, like that's, let me pull that up real quick. This stuff, when you look at it, because of the density of it, it looks complicated, okay? But when you get in here on details, it's not very complicated. You see how he's handling the trees right here? Look. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All this stuff is very flat. Now, what he's taking advantage of here is not details. Everybody looks at it and goes, oh, there's a ton of detail. Look at it. There's not a ton of detail. They're very flat, simple shapes. Look at that, okay? What he is relying on here is density, a lot of stuff, okay? A lot of stuff doesn't equal detail, and it equals density, and that's a different thing. I find, I just don't even believe in detail, to be honest with you, but density is important. That's what's making this look fun and active and all that kind of stuff, okay? Now, another thing you can do here, because he's got a lot of color going on, you don't want it to be scattered. So you might want to come over here, or go, like we talked about the color tools before, maybe go into the color guide, you know, this one, or, you know, the Adobe Wheel one, or any of those, and start to create yourself a palette. And I think I've said this before, but you know, it's not bad to come in at something like this. This has a lot of color, but I might look at something like this and go, I kind of like this color scheme right here. And I'll start there and then I'll build off of that. Does that make sense? If you go to Dribble, one thing that's interesting about Dribble, and I mean, you can just do this on that Adobe color wheel where you pull the picture in and it gives you a palette of the colors of that picture. You can do the same thing, but usually here on Dribble, they put the palette. See it right here? You guys see that? So sometimes I'll look at it and go, okay, I really like that palette. And I'll just screen grab it, throw it in. And it always ends up changing, but it gives me a starting point so I can get going. But I always have some idea in my head of what the color scheme I kind of want. But you got to put that together in a coherent way. And that's another thing. Now, you guys have a lot of tools now. And you guys have been doing this. You guys all been doing a good job and all that kind of stuff. So now it's like, let's put all that together in a different way. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now we've got a very designy thinking going on here. I like that, again, design, illustration, conveying a lot of information in a fun way. Okay? Every time I see a cool infographic, wherever it is, explaining something, I just always dive into it. I like that stuff, you know. And when I was a kid, they just didn't have as much of that. You know, it was just harder to convey information back then, just because people hadn't thought of it really. Okay? What I want to do, and is same thing we've been doing, which is thumbnail. Okay, does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I just want some simple thumbnails. Take a screen grab of, or however you're doing on your cell phone. I don't care. Don't go into Illustrator right away. Just throw down some ideas so we can just go over them. Because what I want to do in the next class is just go over your ideas and start to pick which we're going to go after. Okay. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Managing.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
I was wondering, to go back to the portfolio talk, do you have any like examples, like, so we kind of know in which direction we have to go, kind of like a benchmark of like what, like
For this project or a portfolio?
Or portfolio?
Yeah, we
Like
can do
what?
that. I can find some and put them online. And Braden's probably gone down this rabbit hole. He probably can too.
Okay.
And plus, he just got accepted to Art Center, which means he put a portfolio together that's pretty good. Hey, Braden.
Yeah.
Do you have your portfolio in a PDF format?
No, because they had me upload it into a separate program.
Oh, okay.
But I could post some stuff that I have in
Yeah,
it.
that would be cool because, I mean, you just got into a top tier school, you know, and I'm assuming you went down the rabbit hole of looking at portfolios and stuff, right?
Yeah, a lot. And everyone was kind of different, but
Yeah.
usually the big thing is to not have any filler content.
Anyway.
Like filler,
Oh,
like
yeah.
filler content. Like it was weird, like going through all of my projects over the semesters at Fullerton and just seeing the few projects that I really didn't care about, and that just reminded me how much time I wasted, and I should have focused more on making portfolio pieces.
Right. But the thing that's weird, at least when I was doing this, okay, which was a long time, I came to Fulton 27 years ago or 28 years ago, whatever it was, 28, I think. Nobody really, I mean, I did have some people, like one or two, that were like, hey, you need to do this. But but ever since then, I don't see enough emphasis on it. And the thing that bothers me about that is, like, you might be early on. I mean, I get a ton of people in this class who just do amazing stuff, okay? I'll try and pull some of it. But, and they really level up, you know, and like some of those pieces, I'm like, that's probably going to look good in your portfolio when you go apply to Art Center or whatever, or wherever you're going to go, right?
Yeah.
Some of those pieces are strong. Sometimes you hit them out of the park when you're actually fairly new, you know? I had a lot of pieces in my portfolio that were from like Fullerton that were in my portfolio for quite a while. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes, we can post some of that. Braden, if you want to post some, not just yours, but the things you found, and I'll find some. And I'll try and find a variety of them, like some illustrations, some vector stuff, just different things. Okay.
Because I was just confused because I was talking to someone about like building a portfolio, and I heard that they don't want to just have like your pieces, but they want to see the process. So I'm not really sure like how you would show that.
Absolutely. Okay,
Oh,
yeah. Go ahead.
thumbnailing. That's
Uh-huh.
something that they definitely want. And
Oh,
like Art Center had like portfolio requirements on their website, and that was one of the things that they wanted the most was process work.
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I heard. So not sure like if there's like a system like you need to show like a certain guideline.
Actually, what really works nice is, and I used to really think about this a lot, and because I would see portfolios way back, and I remember they'd have like a tissue page, you know, sketch paper or whatever, and they'd have these cool little thumbnails on it, to Braden's point. What I wanted to see when I was doing it, when I was hiring, I did want to see process. And the reason I want to see process, or anybody wants to see process, is you're giving a potential hirer, employer, a window into how you work, and giving them confidence that you can work quickly and that you have ideas and you know how to take that to final execution. Okay. And the story I always tell is that like the stuff that I did required a lot of drawing and all that kind of stuff, and a lot of skill in, you know, like product design requires a lot of skill and hand skill and all that. And I hired somebody one time, I probably told you guys this, but I hired somebody one time where I gave him a project, or I actually was just thumbnailing, I need ideas. And I came back before my meeting and he's sitting there, you know, drawing on his second drawing. I mean, he was a drawer, not a sketcher, wasn't a good idea guy. And I blame myself for that. But what's nice is, and I'll find some, is when you literally have that process where it's sort of like, however you word what that project was, then you show a really beautiful page, you take the best thumbnails, you build a page, then it kind of goes to refinement a little bit, and then it goes to, you know, final, however that works, and you do it in a really, really nice presentational way, okay? And then, you know, once I have a page of that or something, I don't need to keep seeing it over and over again. Then I can kind of go, oh, okay, I get how they get to here. And here's kind of 3 pieces that are that style or whatever.
Oh, okay.
And then, because I don't, you know, that gives me confidence because I go, oh, wow, they got great thumbnailing skills. If it was like for package design, then I go, they got great thumbnailing skills, and that was enough for the drawing part. Because I'm like, good, they can talk to me quickly. They can show me their ideas and I understand them quickly. Their thumbnails communicate. They're not, and I'm not talking about detail at all. I'm talking about just communicating. Okay.
Okay.
And that gave me a confidence going, okay, if I give them a project, it's not going to take them forever to do it. They're going to be able to come back to me in an hour with ideas and at least get the conversation started and all that kind of stuff. It's a skill set thing. You know what I mean? And then there's the creativity part of it. The other side of that equation is, and it happens a lot with like entertainment design people, where you go in their portfolio and it's all these super slick, finished digital paintings and things like that, okay? That gives me no confidence because I go, you might have worked 2 years on this portfolio for these 12 pieces. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I don't know how you got there. And then,
Right.
by the way, and I can tell that, like, especially if I'm going through a portfolio going, these are all photo bashed, you know, paintings. These aren't, I don't know what this person's actual skill set is. Okay.
Got it. Okay.
I want to know what your skill set is. And the skill set's what's going to, because these people, when you go into these situations, the timelines are crazy. Okay. So it's a big deal if you're coming in and pretty quickly you can hit the ground running and start contributing, you know, that's what people are going to want. You know what I mean? And if they see the whole skill set, then they go, okay, I'm confident hiring this person. They have a great skill set. They got great ideas. I mean, that's it. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And to Braden's point, by the way, filler, that's your enemy. You know what I mean? If I go back and look at my portfolio from before, and I had a huge portfolio because I did a lot of different things. I'm sure there's tons of, I'm sure I'd be horrified if I looked at that portfolio now. Okay. But you know, whatever. But that's just learning and getting experience and figuring all that out. Okay.
Okay.
I think infographic, and when we're talking about infographics here, we're not just talking about what a lot of people think about with this, which is like buttons and icons and this and that, and all those things are fine. You can incorporate those things, but I want a bigger idea. I want you to start using your illustrative skills and all that sort of thing in here now, okay? It's illustration whether it's this program, Illustrate, whatever it is, design, graphic design, all that stuff has to be in service to design. If you have good drawing skills, you have to be in service to design, not just drawing for drawing's sake, okay? It's another thing I see in portfolios where they'd have I don't know, a bad figure drawing at the back of their portfolio. And he's like, why is this even here? You know what I mean? Like, number one, this doesn't show me anything other than you don't know how to life draw. Like, why would this be in here? But they think it's like some sort of baseline skill set thing that they're showing, and it's just not. All it's doing is just making me go, you don't know that shouldn't be in your portfolio, and that's actually a problem. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so what I always, and I usually do this in Dart 100, and if you guys want, I could do like a quick, I don't know, 15, 20-minute tutorial on how to do this, because it doesn't take anything. I always have them build a PDF, interactive PDF, what do you call it, portfolio, okay? And a lot of them, they go, well, I don't have anything put in. I go, put placeholders in it. I go, put a placeholder in it, like design it the way you want it to look, and then start, and if you don't have a lot of pieces or whatever, put placeholders in it. Go find really great work and go, on this page, that's what I want my page to look like. And then you start, you know, when you're in a class like this, if somebody came to me and said, hey, you know, look, I want to put a piece like that, I think it'll fit with this project, I'd be all over that, okay? Then you can take that piece out and you swap out that nice one, your new nice one, and then what happens is you're always looking at all your work together all the time. And you're not just looking at it like Braden's saying with like, oh shit, I shouldn't have wasted time on that, I shouldn't have done that. You're always in that thinking all the way through, okay? And it's important if you want to have a career that you're thinking like a professional from the beginning, okay? That means handing in stuff on time. That means being serious about it. And I just, one of the things I always tell you guys is I think obsession is good with this. I think rabbit holing down all this stuff is good with all this stuff. And I just bought the masterclass thing so I can watch some of that at home, which is a really interesting bunch of classes online. And one of the common denominators, if you watch the trailers for those things, and these are all major people, one of the major things is obsession, passion, and professionalism, okay? You need to start creating the professionalism part now, because this is, you know, when you're in college, you call it your college career for a reason. It's part of your career, okay? It's when you start, at least for me, it's when, I know it's just me, it's when you really start understanding the idea of acting like a professional and performing like a professional. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
This stuff has to be, what I just gave you basically is a creative brief. Now, I'm not giving you the parameters of, okay, I want it to be about Elon Musk's future plans for going to Mars or whatever. I'm not giving you that because this is a mechanics class, but I always like a big dose of design in it, okay?
Yeah. So
I want you guys, in this case, to come back to me with, you know, what you're going to do. And again, take it out of your wheelhouse sometimes, okay? Because all of us have things we like doing, okay? But I think you've got to learn to think broader as a designer and go, I like design, or I like illustration, or whatever it is. Illustration is design to me. And just go, you can ask me to design anything almost, and I'm going to be excited about it because I like the process of design. When I was working in toys for all those years, when we left Disney because of a bunch of stuff, when I talked to those guys like 2 years later, I'd go, hey, what are you doing? And they were still out of work. Okay. And I go, who are you talking to? They went to this toy company, this toy company, this toy. You know why? Because their mindset was, I'm a toy designer. They like that idea. Okay. When I left that and I knew the economy was going to go south, I go, screw this. I'm going over here. I'm going to do package design because I think this is a more stable business right now while the economy is crappy. Okay. They didn't do that. They kept staying in this over and over again, going back to the same companies. And it's like, dude, there's no jobs there. Like, go be a designer doing something else. Like, stop identifying yourself as this one thing. Identify yourself as a broad-based designer who can design a lot of things. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think
For
it's
the thumbnail, would you like it next class?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect.
Just like we do, just a little thumbnails, like a flare marker or whatever you want to do. Or you could do it digitally. I don't care if you draw it on the. But if you're doing it digitally, draw it on your, draw it. Don't go into like Illustrator and start.
Yeah.
Because the reason I like you guys on paper and not just on, when I say on paper, I mean, you know, it could be on a Cintiq, or it could be on a tablet, or just drawing, okay? Is it gets you out of that, I really, and I know I've said this before, but it gets you out. If you start off on Illustrator, your brain is going to start going down the rabbit hole of finish. You're going to start going to finish too fast. I guess what everybody does, they jump on that, and all of a sudden they show me their thumbnail, and it's basically a half-assed finished illustration. I'm like, why would you spend all this time on this? It's not even a good idea. And by the way, all of us have bad ideas. That's what thumbnails are for. I used to show my boss at Imagineering a big giant sheet of thumbnails whenever I could catch him, because he was always in meetings. And he would just come over and go, yeah, I like that, I like that, I like that. And just circle a couple things. I like that, make a couple of comments. And that was my next round of designs, and which were also thumbnails, until I nailed it down into one thing. And then I started burrowing into it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Thumbnailing is a key. And me and Steven, and I'll probably just write it, me and Steven are supposed to have written a class, which is just thumbnailing basically for graphic designers, okay? And I think that's a key skill that is being lost. When I was looking at portfolios all the time, what I was always noticing, and this was 10, 12 years ago, or probably 10 years ago, what I was seeing is a lack of thumbnailing skills, a lack of drawing skills, and I don't think all graphic designers have to have monster drawing skills, but I do think they should have good thumbnailing skills. And thumbnailing skills and like draftsmanship are kind of two different things. So maybe I'll try and find some of those too. I'll try and find some portfolios that have thumbnails and process and finish and all that kind of thing, okay? Sarah?
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Sarah, you're a graphic design major, right?
I'm kind of like thinking about that now. I was thinking about doing advertising.
And?
But I'm thinking like maybe like graphic design might give me more like comprehensive comprehensive classes.
Hey, Braden.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is the advertising program at Art Center right now, if you know? Because I don't know.
I just talked to one of the professors, and it just seems like it's a lot smaller of a department than it used to be.
Yeah.
And they really kind of hit the ground running with ads.
With what?
With ads. Like
Oh.
one of the first projects, like straight out the gate, is like picking a product and immediately making an ad. So
How are they defining ad though?
Like print ads, like
okay.
just for a product or something. Like one of the projects that the professor was talking about was a condom ad, and then there was like an ad for headphones and stuff like that. But it really is like you really need a necessary base of graphic design skills.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. The thing that's interesting now, and it's weird because you get, again, old farts like me, and they lament the old world of like advertising and stuff, which I think is a really bad, and it's going to happen to you guys, by the way. All you guys who are young, you're going to have a moment where the whole world gets yanked out from under you. It happens to everybody. It usually happens when you're between 40 and 50. The whole world changes, okay? And you don't like it because you're an old fart. But what's weird about it is I look at advertising and all that kind of stuff, and when things are in transition like that, I get it. It's hard if you've been in it for a long time. But it's actually interesting too, and creates a lot of, I think the discussion around how I would think of an ad campaign now would be so much different because it's so multifaceted now. And you can do kind of grassrootsy stuff, and you can do clever stuff that doesn't cost a lot of money along with the other traditional stuff. And you know, you have much more market data now to look at and all that kind of stuff. So to me, I think it's interesting.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. And graphic design at Art Center used to be tied to advertising, didn't it?
Yeah. Actually, to bounce off that, the advertising like section, they don't completely know what they're doing as far as like what is an ad.
Right.
And they kind of they're on the same floor as graphic design, and I think they kind of intermingle still, but they're separate programs.
So are they, when you say they don't quite know what they're doing, you mean they're still defining it?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think I told everybody here the last time, one of the like optional requirements is to create memes, because
Yeah.
somehow that's still advertising.
It is.
and they're focused on what can be defined as viral marketing and like
that's a
campaigns
tough,
for that.
yeah. I mean, that's a tough problem. If somebody came to me and said, "Great, something viral, man," that's a tough question, you know,
Yeah.
or tough problem to solve. But the thing I like about that place, about the thing I always liked about it, is there was just so many you're around so many super bright, talented people that were figuring all this stuff out. And half the time they're 10 steps ahead of you, and you're, in that environment all the time. And I think right now, from what I'm seeing, it's even more so than it was then, because everything has splintered, and it's, there's so many more facets to everything. But this thinking, the main thing, the skills is what always blows people away over there. But like the thing that I think people don't miss about that kind of environment is the thinking. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Braden?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's great to be in that environment because you get your ass kicked, and it's great. You know what I mean?
That's why I wanted to go there.
Right. And you get your ass kicked, and there'll be certain kids or whatever students in that class that are just like, damn it, I can't catch this person. You know what I mean? Or three of them, but you do at some point if you work hard enough. And that place is all about hard work, which I like too. Okay, Sarah, does that answer that?
It does. Thank you.
And the other thing, Sarah, is like Braden, how many electives are you going to have? You're going as a graphic design major, right?
Yeah.
And how many electives do you have? Do you know?
Because I haven't talked to an admissions person yet about what classes translate to, not having to take them. There's a certain amount of electives every semester, and they kind of guide you through those. And I actually don't quite remember. I'll have to look up the timeline that they have on there, and I could post it.
I bet you have a lot.
Oh yeah, there for sure. There's a lot.
And why that's important, Sarah, like those kind of questions I really like, because you're figuring it out, and you're kind of where I was when I was there. I knew I wanted to be an illustrator and all that, but I also love design and a bunch of different things. So while you're here, that's the value of here, is that we can have these conversations and we can start hopefully figuring it out for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because I think I think it's still, I know now you guys have all this access to information, but I still think it feels probably when you're not, and especially now, it's so splintered, like how this all works now. Like before, it was like advertising it just was what it was. Okay.
Yeah.
It was also very stodgy. Okay. Anytime when I was a kid, anything you liked that all of a sudden was on a commercial or in print ads or whatever, you're like, I'm done with that. You know what I mean? Because it was guys like my age probably who were creating these ad campaigns for young people and totally didn't get it. I think that's changed a lot. There's a lot of super young people in that industry who do get it because they're part of it. So if back then, let's say it's punk rock or whatever, now it wouldn't be some old fart ad guy that's my age. It'd be some person who's in that scene and is probably 25. You know what I mean? It's not that you have to be young to do that, but as people get older, they tend to disengage with a lot of things.
Right.
While you're here, because on the other side of that, I think it's actually interesting to not be a part of it, but be smart enough to go research it and delve into it and be interested in it, and have the perspective of not being in it and going, oh, it's kind of this thing. There's a value to both. Okay.
Right.
But here you want to ask those questions all the time. Like, because you're not spending a lot of money for your education like you are at a top tier place. Figure out all those things here. And then when you go to that, an art center or CalArts or whatever, you're sort of on your path, and you're not getting the shiny object all the time, or you're chasing the shiny object all the time. Does that make sense?
Right.
Yeah. You need to figure it out here, and you can absolutely figure it out here. Okay. And that's our job, which is why I like to stay engaged. I just like to stay engaged with everything anyway, but I have to stay engaged with things. Otherwise, I'm going to get behind, and my information will get dated, which I don't want to ever happen. Okay.
Right.
So, always ask those questions all the time. Okay. Anything.
Okay.
When I was doing this, you always felt like you were looking through a foggy window trying to see what was going on in there, and you couldn't get any information. And then you were like, I remember looking at stuff and just going, I don't get how that goes from that to that. Like, how does that happen? Like, what is this guy's skill set? But let's say, I don't understand his, what, you know, and there was no blogs or any of that stuff to go look at how they do their thing. It was just complete magic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even down to the ideas, like where these people come up with all these ideas, like, you know, and I still, you know, you still see that all the time. We've been watching, well, there's this age of TV going on right now, and you watch some of these shows now and you go, where did they come up with this? The writing is so crazy good, you know? And part of that's just because they've been unleashed creatively. You know what I mean? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll find some, and if anybody else finds anything they think is cool, tell me, okay? I'll try and find some portfolios and things like that. And maybe anything that sort of speaks to that, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Questions? Everybody's good?
Have
What?
homework or no?
Hmm?
Do we have homework today or no?
Have more what today?
Homework.
Homework.
I just want thumbnails on Wednesday.
Okay.
And I just want to go over the thumbnails on Wednesday. Okay? So I'm going to put a folder up. Maybe I'll just do it after this. And start dropping your thumbnails in there. Okay? With your name. All right? Because Wednesday, I just want to basically go over those and approve or draw over them or whatever I'm going to do. Okay?
Okay.
Just like
I'm sorry. I wrote a question for you. It's in the chat. I just did one directly to you because it didn't like really necessarily pertain to the rest of the class. So you can just answer that whenever. I wasn't sure if you had your chat open or not. So
where is my wait? Where is my why is it not getting in my chat window?
I don't think we can see it.
Hang on, let me flip this. Oh, okay. Oh, this is just about your previous project, Ryan?
yeah, I was just having trouble with other classes and the uploads, and then it occurred to me that it might have expanded to other classes because I've had one class where just my uploads have continuously not worked. And then so I just was concerned that it wasn't working for all my other classes.
Did you figure out what the problem was?
No, I just ended up taking, because it's, instead of scanning it in, it was like a scanned version. So it wasn't like an online version. So it seems like it wouldn't necessarily be an issue. I just wanted to double check because my computer doesn't like me.
Yeah. You sure it's not just a file format thing?
It might have been. I honestly don't really know. I was able to get in the project, so I didn't like really look into it in depth. I probably should, but I was just more concerned of making sure that he had the project, so I just want to make sure that the same thing.
Were you uploading it through Google?
Yeah, it was through Google. So theoretically, it worked fine, and there wasn't an issue, but
yeah, sometimes there's just like weird little things that'll do that.
Yeah, I just know that everyone in my house is using the internet like right now, so like
and also
continuously.
Like,
so there's
I'm
like no break for it.
I'm behind on everything right now because I'm sort of in this continuous cycle of making stuff.
Oh,
all the time.
Yeah,
So
take your time, like completely. Just let me know if it's not there.
Thing. It's not a time thing on that. It's just I want to make sure you guys understand because like I've had people and they go, wait a minute, did I get a bad grade on this assignment? And it's just because I haven't gotten to grading it yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's probably showing them that they're late or something. It's like they're not late or anything. It's just that I've got to go back and get this. Right now, what I'm more concerned with is getting content done because I have to create a lot of content right now, just like the video for you guys. I'm doing like a ton of those all the time, right? Some of them are a half an hour long, some of them are an hour long, some of them involve drawings and blah, 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 and all this stuff. But
so I didn't expect it to be like graded. I just want to make sure that if it wasn't there, that you actually got it so that you had something to grade.
It'll be fine. And by the way, I'll know what you were doing with it because we've been looking at it and all that stuff. So it's fine.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Oh, should Should that project be about a fictional or a real place?
A real problem. Okay. Now it could be a map of a place. That's fine. I don't care about that. But I want the map to be cool. You know what I mean? And I want it to be clear. Right. And I want it to convey things. Okay. Or whatever this stuff is. I'll put the link to the one for this project, and then I'll also probably put a dump of some of this infographic stuff I'm finding, and the stuff about what Sarah asked about portfolios. I got to try and find some of those. And again, if you guys know any of this stuff, let me know. Or if you guys stumble onto really cool stuff, tell me, okay? Or put it in the discussion board. And then I would say on Wednesday, have at least 5 ideas, okay? And again, not iterations of the same idea, okay? Now, if you go through iterations of something, that's cool, but then you do another idea, you know, and then if you do iterations of that, but have 5 solid ideas. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You gonna say something, Sarah?
No, I just said yes.
Oh, okay. It lights up whenever somebody's saying something. What else? And I won't introduce anything new because I want Wednesday's class. I just want to go over those and crit them, and I can draw over them here, you know, just like we do in class. And then we can go over those ideas and everything, and get started back into a project. I like being in projects because we can always introduce tools in projects, and also. You know a lot more tools now, obviously, than when you started. So now it's starting to be mix and match and what makes sense and how do I handle this? You've got a lot of tools now, okay? And you've gone through a lot of these things. And, you know, now it's like, I feel like now is about the time where you start going, okay, I'm starting to get a handle on this. I want to really do a knockout piece, okay?
Okay.
Yes?
Mhm.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Wait, let me see. I got to do this one more time. Let me see if I have. No, I don't want that. Okay. I have to. I think I already got this. All right, I already got a screen grab, so I think we're okay. Okay, any other questions?
No.
Pretty simple, right? Now you got to do 2 things though. You got to find a subject matter, and then your idea, obviously, how you're going to solve that problem. Okay, so I would pick either a process. Well, and process. I mean, it could be what's going on right now. Like this is interesting actually, because if you go, one of the things that's going on right now, there's a bunch of stuff going on right now. It's interesting. But one of the things that's interesting that's going on right now is there's a lot of chaotic information going on right now, okay? Because you don't have a coherent White House funneling information that's coming from the scientific community and all that stuff. So you have these multiple chaotic messaging going on, and like just like now everybody's wearing a mask, right? Well, why didn't they just tell us to wear a mask before? I heard that it didn't matter. I heard that it kind of mattered. I heard that oh no, this is super important. I've heard that that's all BS and it's a hoax. I've heard that, you know, just on and on. There's just all this crazy information. Like it is interesting to do. Like if you look at, I think this is kind of fun. Hang on. Let's see if I can find it. And it's not an infographic, but it's a simplified idea. You guys aren't on my screen right now, right?
Not right now.
Okay. Hang on, I just gotta find it. So, let me find it. Here it is. So this kind of simplified idea for this, like the way Steven Silver drew this character, okay? Does that make sense? Like I could take that as a character who's narrating this information. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So it could be that type of an approach where it's more of an illustrative approach. or more humorous approach, but I mean, that's the kind of direction I tend to go in, because especially with this kind of information, I don't want it to be dry. I want it to be silly and fun, but like super informative. That's one way you could go. You could go more just very clear messaging, so on and so forth. So that makes it, you could use a metaphor, maybe it's stairs circling up and, blah, blah, blah. I could use all sorts of metaphors for this thing too. If I was doing a timeline where I need to do a timeline, maybe I don't do it across thing. Maybe I do a spiral staircase, and it ties into something. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I want you to get creative with it, because I think getting creative with this type of information, I think it's fun. It could be done in the guise of, it looks like just like Steven Silver's doing, or if I elaborated on that, maybe it looks like a comic book page. It's like saying all this information, okay? Now, I'm not saying that for anybody who's into comic books to go, oh, good, I'm gonna draw a comic book. You have to find the right solution for the right information, okay? You have to find the right solution. When somebody gives you a brief, you can't just go, I like to draw this kind of thing, so all my solutions are this kind of thing. You can't do that, okay? You gotta have a broad skill set, and you go, this thing needs to be kind of serious, very clear, whatever. Oh, this thing's in, I don't know what the magazines are anymore, Time Magazine, Newsweek Magazine. It's a little more, I just saw a supplemental section in the New York Times about cats that was super fun. Like I thought for sure it was advertising. I don't think it was. And it had this great illustration on the front by Tavis Louie. He's a really interesting illustrator. Then you open it up and it was all this fun information about cats and all these cool illustrations. It was really fun. Okay. And I don't know what drove that, because I didn't see, usually it'll say advertising supplement or whatever on it, and it didn't. So it might have just been something fun they decided to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll try and take a film of it real quick so you can kind of see it. I thought it was really cool. I just thought it was fun. Okay, any other questions?
Nope.
Nope.
Okay, so Wednesday we're gonna have our thumbnails, correct?
Yep.
I'm gonna
Yep.
put a folder up, and don't do this. I'm gonna put the folder up right now, but don't go, okay, and I'll throw it in the folder. No, take your time. You have today, obviously, tomorrow, and then, that's a lot of time for thumbnails, I think, right? Go do your research first. First, find the subject matter you find interesting, then go do your research, then come up with your thumbnails, correct? Don't just come up with
Got
a
it.
solution to something
Okay.
you think you already know. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, guys. Then I will see you on Wednesday with thumbnails, and we're going to crit them, okay?
Okay.
All right, you guys. I'll see you later.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.